Hello! Welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes that you find some inspiration along the way. This is episode 133. Thank you for joining me on this beautiful fall day. It is the first week of October, year 2024, and I am coming to you from Minnesota, where I live with my husband and our 2 young children. It is a crisp autumn morning. It is in the 40s, and today will actually warm up still to maybe 70s, but I think the trajectory is going down. I'm sure I said that last week and maybe the week before, but maybe fall is actually here. It was so unseasonably warm in September for us. Usually it's cooling down by then. Usually I've pulled out my entire garden by the end of September, maybe early October if I haven't gotten around to it. But I haven't even done that yet, and I do need to harvest more of our green onions, and those are generally more frost hardy, and so I have some time for that, but I haven't pulled out all the tomatoes yet or anything like that, and it's kind of time to do that. They're looking a little scraggly. If you are new here, a big welcome to you, and thank you for those that are coming back week after week, month after month. I can hardly believe it, but I started this channel November 2019, so it has been almost 5 years. And it just went by in the blink of an eye. I think of 5 years passing in terms of my children, though they weren't like babies. I mean, the youngest was a toddler, and the older one, would she have started kindergarten then? Kindergarten or first grade maybe? I think the younger one was still in preschool. Anyway, it's just gone by so quickly, and I'm excited that I'm still here. Who knew? I started it not knowing where I would end up. I didn't even look at 5 years from then. I was thinking, okay, am I gonna make it to the next episode? But yes, here I am. So thank you for your continued words of encouragement and your time spent here with me and sharing your projects and your enthusiasm and cheering each other on. I feel like that keeps me going and keeps me sharing here on YouTube. The way I usually organize my videos here is I have an intro welcome section, then we go into finished projects, and then works in progress, eats and reads, where I talk about things I might have baked or cooked lately, and books that I have recently finished or am currently reading. And then sometimes there is a food for thought section, which I do have something this time. It's sometimes related to making, not always, but since making is part of my everyday life, it usually has some thing related to making, but I do have something for that, and I do need to jot it down or I will forget. So 1 second while I grab a pen. I have that written out. We're good. What else? Closed captionings are included in the video. Click on the CC button if you need to adjust the speed. YouTube also allows you to do that. I do include show notes in the description box below this video, so there should be links to things that I talk about. I use Ravelry for my projects, so crochet and knit items will be there. Sewn projects are not on Ravelry. And that might be it. Oh, the other thing I don't always remember to mention, but I feel like it is useful, is that in those projects, I do include the episode that I talk about the project as a work in progress and then also as a finished project. So if you are someone that uses Ravelry pretty often and likes to check out different projects and do a little bit more research before you might cast something on, I feel like that could be a good place to look for a specific project and get more information on which video it was in. Today, I do have a few finished projects to share with you. It has been about a week and a half since we last chatted, and one of the projects was actually a work in progress in the last, well, not in the last video. I forgot to talk about it in the last video because I didn't have it with me when I rounded everything up, and so that one was finished since that time. But yes, it was a work in progress last time. I just forgot to show it. And then another one is a finished project that I didn't share in the last episode, but it was in like 2 episodes previously. And then there's another one that's a new one, 2 of them that are new ones. They're smaller projects, and I have some updates on works in progress. 2 of the projects are brand new cast-ons in the work in progress section, so that will be fun to share. And then I have finished a book recently. I've started another book, and yeah, so let's get started. Okay, before we jump into the finished projects I want to share with you today, I want to just briefly go over what I am wearing. And I have these earrings on by Birdie Parker. They are copper and silver, and there is a stockinette pattern on the metal. The sweater that I'm wearing today is Heartwood Stripes. It is a pattern by Tiff Nealon. I tested this pattern for her 2 years ago, I think exactly 2 years ago. It released early October or sometime in October year 2022. I knit mine in Earl Grey Fiber Company's DK. I think it's Oolong DK. It's 100% superwash merino, and it is a top-down circular yoke sweater with stripes and some texture in it. There is this folded over neckband, which makes it nice and thick with structure. And then if it stretches out, you can always put elastic in it. And I knit mine with, I think, 3 inches of positive ease, which is within the recommendations. And it is a full length pattern. I don't remember if I extended the length. Same with the sleeves. I don't remember if I extended that length too. The sleeve cuffs have Tiff's signature herringbone detail. A lot of Tiff's patterns have texture in them and some detail either on the cuff or near the end of the sleeve and then going into the cuff. And yeah, I really enjoyed knitting this pattern. It is definitely a very autumnal sweater, and I don't remember the colorways. I want to say one of them is like Autumn Walk. Yeah, I don't remember the colorway names, but yeah, I really enjoy this pattern. I really enjoy wearing it. I believe the pattern is categorized as intermediate, but I feel like the intermediate part might more have to do with these different textures and the herringbone. It isn't hard to do and it isn't hard to learn, but it wouldn't just be stockinette round and round for like a beginner pattern. So maybe as an advanced beginner or adventurous beginner and someone that isn't afraid to rip things out if it doesn't look right, I think that would be a good attitude to have going into it. But otherwise, I don't think any of the techniques are necessarily difficult. It would just be knits and purls, as far as I remember, and increasing. But it is a fun one to do that you can mix and match different colors together, really create a vibe, a different color palette. I think if you did it all in one color, I mean, you wouldn't have the stripes then, but you would still have these textured bumps in it. Or you could do it 2 colors. I feel like a navy and cream or like a black and white would look really nice. But yeah, definitely you could pick a season and just kind of go with that. But I really enjoyed knitting this, and so I have it paired with my Birdie Parker earrings, and I think I'm feeling very autumnal here. Okay, let's talk about my first finished project here. And these aren't necessarily going in any sort of order. I'm just going to talk about this one first. Look at how cute this is. This is my version of October's Colorwork Cuff Club by Summer Lee Designs. So there has been this monthly Colorwork Cuff Club that started in August, and it's a mystery, but you get a colorwork motif each month, and they have come with 2 each month so far. And basically you put it in for your sock, and there's a basic sock recipe. You put it in, you pick your colors, and off you go. Well, I was excited to see October's. There's an apple motif and a ghost motif, and I started it. I did a different, I'm still gonna call this a cuff because it did start out to be socks and then obviously ended up not a sock. But I did a different cuff. So I did a recipe that I have here on YouTube called the Peekaboo Cuff Tutorial. And basically you knit a fold over cuff. I'm gonna take it off of this so I can show you better. But then there's like no purling at all. And basically I start with my contrast color. I knit 16 rounds. Then I cut that, I switch to my main color, I knit 12 rounds, and then I knit to my cast on edge. I do an old Norwegian cast on, it's very stretchy. In my video tutorial about this type of cuff, I do give some tips on how to make sure it's stretchy enough if you're making it for socks. And then I went into the chart, I followed all the stitch counts, and then I remembered that I really don't enjoy doing 3-stranded color work. It is really not that big of a deal, but I don't enjoy that process. And I usually knit my color work with 2 hands, so I'll hold my contrast color in my left hand, my main color in my right hand, and away I go. But then if you do 3 colors, so in this line with the eyes, there's 3 colors there, I have to drop both of my contrast colors so that I can pick up the correct one, all the while making sure my tension is even. I'll show you my floats. This is the inside of it. And I prefer to knit my socks on 9-inch circulars, especially for color work because I don't have any angles or joins or, not joins, angles. I don't have all these extra points, right, that you would get with double pointed needles or in Magic Loop. And then it's easy for the floats to become too tight. And so if everything's in a circle, I can more evenly distribute my tension. So that was fine. But I often overcompensate and things end up too loose. Here I am using a light fingering weight yarn. This is Purl Soho's fine print yarn. It came out, I want to say early September maybe, and I was sent the yarn as part of their sneak peek collaboration. I don't know why I said collaboration so weirdly. I think I was gonna say collab, and then I, halfway through the word, decided to say the whole word, so it came out collaboration. Anyway, so this is a 75-25 superwash wool nylon, and it's a light fingering weight yarn, and I overcompensated on my tension, so it's like extra loose in some places, which means some of my stitches are just extra long and just slightly wonky. I don't know if it'll show here. I did wet block this, and then in my wet blocking, my stitches were even more pronounced as extra loose, so then I threw it in the dryer. And then it still looked kind of weird. So then I took an iron to it and I just pressed it really hard right on the yarn. I didn't even put another like tea towel in between, which I would usually do if I'm like carefully steam blocking something. But yeah, I just, since I knew I wasn't going to be wearing this as a sock anymore, I didn't even care if it felted some. I just kind of wanted to see what would happen. And so it came out nice and flat. I mean, I pressed it with a hot iron and I'm not sure it actually felted, but it's being that superwash doesn't felt as easily as non-superwash, but I think my stitches look much better now than they did before. And yeah, and then so I did some more stockinette on the bottom, and then I did a knit one purl one rib along the bottom, and then I did a tubular bind off just cause I wanted to see what it would look like. And I think it looks nice. And then I decided to have it finish kind of blocking out. And so I put it on my thermos here. This is a 10-ounce Yeti thermos. And it's like just the right size. It could probably be slightly more snug, which it was prior to wet blocking, just so it doesn't accidentally slide off. But if it's too tight, the stitches could stretch out funny. Like I'm gonna just try to stretch it out here so you can see maybe it would stretch out weird. Or maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not making a second sock. I mean, I am not even making the first sock. I'm just finishing this off here, and this is my Cup Cozy, my sweater for a Yeti. My daughters think it's the cutest thing ever. They're like, Mom, I want one. And no, I'm not making another one. We're sticking with this. It's super cute. It goes with the season. It's kind of fun. And I'm not going to worry about putting it in the wash or anything. And if it shrinks a little, that's fine too. If it felts a little, it's okay with me. We'll just use it as an experiment and see what happens. But I'm kind of liking it. I think it's so cute. And it used very little yarn. It's a little cup cozy. It's not even a full sock. Oh, and there's something you might notice different from the colorwork chart, if you have the chart, is that I skipped the mouth. Because after I did the 3-color colorwork on the eyes, I was like, I'm not doing that again. So, yeah, there we are. And it is not that I cannot do 3-color colorwork or 3-stranded colorwork. I don't enjoy the process, even on a teeny sock. Maybe I enjoy it even less on a teeny sock because it seems so fiddly, but to each their own. Not my thing, but I like this. I think it's cute, and we're done. Next up, we are going to talk about a pair of socks. These are for my husband's sock drawer. If you've been here for some time, you will know that I am working on knitting him 12 pairs of socks this year, which will double his collection of hand knit socks. He wears all the socks I make, and so I thought, well, I should up that number there. And so the average comes out to be 1 sock per month this year, but it's not happening that way. And so I will just get to however many I get to. It'll be fine. So here we have pair number 7. I love how these turned out. This is mostly following the Socksploration Shadow Wrap Heel Socks by Denise of Earth Tones Girl. I don't even really look at the pattern anymore, so I am not sure, like, as far as number of rounds or how long the leg is, how it compares to the pattern, but I think I did my toe a little different. I think I did a wedge toe instead of a rounded toe. But yeah, here we are. I love how they turned out. They turned out identical, and I cast on 64 stitches using 1.5 or 2.5 millimeter needles. So that's US 1.5. And the yarn I used is Mud Punch, which is an 80/20 superwash merino nylon. The colorway is Rigadoon. And this yarn comes in 385 yards for 110 grams. I used 74 grams total, and the remaining yarn I will knit up short socks for myself with a contrast color. The contrast color I used here is Patons Croy, which is a 75/25 super wash wool nylon. I don't know if I have any of the tags for the yarn here. I don't believe I do. For the Patons Croy, I did a contrast line on top for the cuff. I cast on 64 stitches. I did a knit 2 purl, 2 for 2 rounds, and then I joined in the main color. What I like about doing that for self-striping yarn is I don't need to make sure I use the exact same amount of yarn for the cast on for each sock if I'm wanting the stripes to match up. And so that way, when I start, I can just start with my 2-inch tail or whatever on each sock, and then I have a better control, better whatever, of making sure the socks match. And they did end up matching exactly. And so I'm so pleased with that. I don't always make socks that match exactly, but in this case I wanted it to, and so they did. And then my heel is the Shadow Wrap Short Row heel in the contrast color. I like doing it in a very hardy yarn because we just won't get holes in this kind of yarn. I've never had to mend a single sock that has used the Patons Croy yarn, and it just washes beautifully, doesn't pill very easily, and it is machine washable, and yeah, it just wears really well. And I did that for the toes as well. And for the contrast color, I used 19 grams, and these turned out really well. And my husband wears a US 10 men's shoe. So done with these. This is pair number 7. The next pair of socks, I loosely followed the classic DK Socks pattern from Summer Lee's Sock Project book. It's the one that I forgot to show last time as a work in progress. And these socks are also not for me. These are for someone special, and it's going in the Christmas bin, and we'll have a tag on it as soon as we're done talking about it here. I held 2 yarns together for that one. One of them is a yarn that I used previously in another pair of socks, and I think I have enough to make another pair of socks. And this is the Crazy Zauberball Crazy. The colorway is 2095. Here's the tag, here's the yarn. I like how on the tags they show you what the gradient will look like. I think that is super helpful. So it's like a magenta, purple, marled gradient. Kind of hard to see here because it's mostly pink on the outside, but I did not wind these to start in the same spot. And then I held this with a 75-25 superwash merino nylon light fingering weight in purple. I felt like this purple had enough difference with the other one that you would still get a nice marl, but it was also similar enough that it wouldn't detract from the gradient. And so they look pretty high contrast here on screen. But when I show you the socks, you will see that they actually worked really well together. And let me get the socks. You ready? Here we go. Here are the completed socks. I think they look so nice, so cozy. I love the colors. I did not start in the same spot in the gradient as I mentioned, and I think it turned out really nice. And the pattern has a rolled stockinette top. I decided to do a 2x2 rib. And then for the heel, it's a slip stitch heel flap, and then a gusset, or a heel turn and then a gusset. I think it turned out looking very nice. And then I just knit stockinette for the rest. So I really like how these ones turned out. I used about 49 grams of each yarn, so it came out to be 97 grams total, and this is for a foot size that's like US 7.5, US 8 shoe, and they're stretchy, they're thick, they're cushy. I think they are going to be perfect for hiking or just wearing around in the house. I think the recipient is going to love these. I love them. I think they're so much fun. Oh, and I knit these on US 3 or 3.25 millimeter needles, also using 9-inch circulars. I had a question in a previous episode what my favorite circular needles are, the small circulars. I've really only used one, so they're ChiaoGoo's, and I really like them. I find the cord very smooth, the join very smooth. I have no issues with it. I will say that if you are new to using 9-inch circulars, just be aware that the way you hold your needles might need to be adjusted a little bit. And for those that like to hook their pinky around a needle, like for longer needles, you might notice that there's nowhere really to anchor your pinky because the needle tip is so short. If you also hold it really tight, you could end up with some hand cramping, so maybe just loosen up. But again, these are things that everybody is going to be different on how they tension their yarn, how they hold their needles, the way they knit, the way they throw, the way they pick, all of the things. So what works for one person may not work for another person. I'm just throwing some tips and ideas and things out there. Also know that 9-inch circulars may or may not work for you, and they are not necessarily the best thing ever. They are something that works for me. And I think a lot of people hear others talking about using certain tools and saying how amazing they are, but just to remember that something can be amazing for one person and not for another person, and that doesn't make it any less of a tool or less great of a tool or anybody more or less of a knitter. It's just whatever works for different people, and there are different options, which is amazing. And yeah, you sometimes just have to play around to see what works best for you. Okay, I am having a very staticky hair day. It keeps clinging to my face, and anything I do just kind of falls apart. So apologies if I'm messing with my hair or if it's like sticking out all over the place. It is just what's happening, and we're just going with it. The next finished project I have to share with you is a little bit different in the sense that I'm going to talk a little bit more about the yarn. This is a new product launch from Purl Soho, and it is another yarn that was sent to me as part of this sneak peek collaboration. So similar to how the fine print yarn was launched. And this is Daily Wool, which is a worsted weight yarn that is superwash wool. This yarn, let me see if I can show you one here. Here you go. Here's the tag. It is very squishy. I'm going to turn it around so you can read the other side. It comes in 164 yards for 100 grams, which I feel like leans closer to Aran weight, so a heavy worsted. The gauge is recommended to be at 19 to 20 stitches for 4 inches, which I feel is closer to a true worsted weight or even a heavy DK weight, but the yardage suggests more of an Aran weight or worsted weight. Now, all of that may just sound like a bunch of nonsense to you. It is just my thoughts coming out from reading these numbers. What is nice is that this is a machine wash, cold, tumble dry, low yarn, which makes it really nice for gift knitting if you aren't sure about the recipient hand washing or just don't want them stressing out about that. I feel like it also means it's great for items that will have high friction or high use because it is less prone to pilling. It is a very round yarn. It is soft without being flimsy. I feel like some yarns that are really soft can feel super fragile, and I'm just not getting that with this, which is nice. Again, it feels very soft, very squishy. Being a really round yarn, I feel like that gives it good stitch definition. I am not sure how it would do in color work since it doesn't have the toothiness a non-superwash yarn would have, because you want those wool fibers to lock together to give you a nice, smooth, cohesive fabric. But I might try it out just to see what would happen, especially if I knit it at a denser gauge where there aren't going to be as much there won't be as much holes or gapingness between the stitches to allow it to anyway. So if I knit it at a denser gauge, the color work, I'm hoping that even if the yarns don't want to grab together, that it could still come out with a smooth fabric. We will see. I'm going to play around with that. So I'm going to show you another color. This one is called Golden Pink. And then we have this heathered blue navy called Teal Storm. Teal is always a hard one to photograph, but I feel like this particular teal leans more blue-black, not that dark. And then this one's wound. I think this is Sea Glass something. I'll put it on the screen if I remember, which is a nice heathered sea glass blue color. And then we have this tomatoey red. I think it's called Flame Red. It's a nice orange leaning tomato red. I think depending on what it's held next to, it could look bluer to be more of a cherry red, but otherwise I feel like it leans warmer. Here are these 4 together. I really like how they are solid, but have some of them have a little more heathering to it than others, which gives it nice dimension. I'm going to show you my swatch that I knit of 5 colors together. The holes I have on the top of the garter border indicate my US needle sizing. So this was knit on a US 7, which is a 4.5 millimeter needle. I really like how these colors are playing together here. I like the fabric. It has a nice density without being stiff. It's still very drapey. When I did a wet block of it, the colors did not bleed together or run into each other, which I think is important. I would always want to test that out on a swatch before testing it out on a garment, because I'd rather a swatch be ruined with color bleeding than an entire garment that I spent months knitting on. So yeah, I'm very pleased with this. So then I thought, let's knit a hat. I have a lot of nieces and nephews and special people that I knit for in my life, And hats are a great one to knit up. They don't take as long as a garment, fit can be less finicky than a garment, and overall it is just enjoyable to knit, enjoyable to wear. And so I used the classic cuffed hat pattern, which is a free pattern on Purl Soho's website. It comes in 3 sizes, baby, kid, and adult. It's fairly stretchy, so even though there are only 3 sizes, I feel like there is some leeway between the sizes. So this one I knit a kid size, and I feel like it fits kid and small adult. So my 3rd grader and my 6th grader both tried the hat on, and they thought it was very comfortable. It fit them both really nicely because there is this ribbed brim that is folded upwards. You have a little more adjustability in sizing, so someone can wear it a little more slouchy or a little more fitted. I'm actually going to try it on here to show it on an adult head. I feel like, what were my measurements? Is it 21 inches was the largest circumference maybe? So I often knit an adult small because I prefer my hats to be more snug than loose. I don't mind it slouchy, I just don't want it loose around my ears. And okay, let's see if we can get this to work here. So if I have the brim more folded up, it is definitely a pretty fitted beanie. You can see the 4-point crown decreases on top. I like the double layer over the ears. I really don't like wind in my ears. It's just uncomfortable and gives me a headache. My hair's in my face. Okay, and then if I wanted to wear this more slouchy, the one thing is because I wove in my ends on the outside, which ends up being the inside when you fold it up, I wouldn't recommend it being worn without any cuff unless you found a different way to weave in your ends that are a little more invisible. So this would be how it's worn without any cuff. That's a look that works, right? Or I could just fold it a little bit to cover up the ribbing part but not have it be as tight. So I think that works as well. So again, this is the kid size, so the 2nd size in the pattern. I think it would fit an adult small, and it definitely fits kids. I don't think it would fit a baby, unless it's a baby with a really, really big head maybe. But a toddler, it could fit a toddler kind of slouchy, especially if the cuff is just folded up a little bit more. My kids said it passed the itchy forehead factor, which is something I always test for when I'm knitting for my children and for gifts, because when I am going to put in that effort, that time, that money into making something to gift somebody, I want to make sure that it has the highest chance of actually being used. And so if anybody has an itchy forehead when they're wearing a hat, they're not going to wear it. It's not going to be comfortable. So when the kids tried it on as a work in progress, because it is knit from this brim up, they said it felt so soft, it was so comfortable, they didn't want to give it back, and so I knew that it passed the itchy forehead factor test. I will be casting on more of these. I'm going to try to do one with the same pattern, but maybe add some color work in this body section. And that will add an extra layer of warmth because the stranded color work will give it 2 layers, just like this brim does. And also I just want to see how this yarn would knit up in some color work. I used a US 5 for the ribbing and a US 7 for the main fabric. The main fabric stockinette gauge is 20 stitches by 24 rounds. And yeah, it's a nice fabric. It isn't too dense, it isn't too loose, but it stretches enough to cover some different sizes of heads. And I think it looks really, really nice. I used 81 grams of yarn here, and the initial hank, well, it was 101 grams, but that's after the swatch. So it probably started out closer to 103 or 104, maybe, somewhere around there. And I used 10 grams in the crown section, and there was no color bleeding in the wet block, so there was no dye in the water. So yeah, this one is finished. I will have more in the works And so you will see this yarn as it comes and hear my thoughts on it as we continue. It is super soft. It is a denser yarn. I don't find it splitty whatsoever. And I think it has that smooth feel that a lot of superwash yarns have. It is not superwash merino. It is superwash wool. And I believe from Peru. If I remember to, I'll put in additional information here on the screen. Okay, let's move on to works in progress. I'm going to show you a brief update on the projects that you've seen in the last couple of episodes. So I'm not going to go into super detail because they've been discussed before. And so if you aren't sure about it, I would just go back to the previous episodes to get the details, like needle sizes and all those things. This is my daughter's Strange Brew sweater. The body is complete. Oh, it looks so good. I've held it up to her. It fits great. She's tried it on. It's so soft. She just snuggled her face into it and cannot wait for it to be done. I just have sleeves to go. They are on short cable holders right now. The body length is perfect. I've actually blocked out the body already just to make sure it would fit okay, and that's why the fabric looks really nice and smooth. This is using Knit Picks Swish DK, which is 100% superwash merino, and then the highlighter yellow is the Knit Picks Stroll Fingering Held Double, and that's a 75-25 superwash merino nylon light fingering weight yarn, and the weight of the yarn comes out to be about the same with that held double compared to the Swish DK. And the purple color is Karma Heather. It's a nice heathered bluish purple. And then the lavender color is Haze Heather, which is a heathered lavender. And then this highlighter is aptly called highlighter yellow. And yes, it's glowing because it is just that bright. I am following the Strange Brew sweater recipe by Tin Can Knits. I did change a few things as discussed in the previous episodes, like this neckband and some sizing things that I changed up. And yeah, I'm just really pleased with how it's turning out. And I've just got sleeves to go, but I can't knit the sleeves yet because the needles that I use for sleeves are on a different project, or rather it's the cords. I think the needle size is available for this with my interchangeables, but the cords are being used on a different project. So I will show you that project next. But this should be done in a couple of weeks because I've just got sleeves to go. And we have a little family road trip coming up where we go see the fall colors from the leaves changing. And I told her that I would try very, very hard to have her sweater done by then. Okay, the project that is holding up my sleeve needles is my Jethro cardigan. This is a project I've also been sharing for multiple weeks now. Again, go to the previous episodes for details. I'm using Pearl Soho linen quill yarn held double. And this is so much fun. I am on the sleeves. I have knit, I think last time I had the bottom hem done. Oopsies. Or maybe almost done. And then, no, the bottom hem was done. And so I have since picked up the neckband, button band, and finished that. Oh, it looks so good. It blocked out very nicely. I have 4 buttonholes here, although I feel like I really only needed to do 3 because that one is just a little bit too high to be buttoned nicely because it's kind of it's not even a V-neck, it's just how it hangs. I don't think I'll be able to put it on with the sweater on, so I can't really show you, but I tried sewing on some buttons that I had that were like a lighter wood, but it didn't look good, so I took them off after I sewed them on, and I will figure out what buttons I will put on here. I'm thinking something that's reddish brown will look nice. The lighter wood I had was closer to this, probably pretty close to this honey pink yarn color up here. And it just didn't look very good. It was too high contrast, I think. So yes, I have my needles on my sleeves. I'm working my sleeves 2 at a time in tandem like I enjoy doing. I use the ChiaoGoo blue shorties, and so I have a 3-inch needle on one, the 2-inch needle on the other, and then I just bought extra cables in the 5, 6, and 8-inch sizes so that I could knit the 2 sleeves simultaneously. And this color is Raw Sienna that I'm pulling from the inside and outside on 2 separate yarn cakes to knit my sleeves. This is like a heathered, well, raw sienna color. And I really like how it is pulling everything together. It looks really nice. I am just knitting without any decreases until I get to the wrists, and then I'll do a cuff. I'll probably, I don't know. I might do a rapid decrease before I knit the ribbing for the cuffs. We'll see what I feel like doing when I get there. I'm knitting the sleeves on a US 7, which is a 4.5 millimeter needle. And I'm probably almost to the elbows. Maybe right above the elbows. I feel like that's kind of where I'm at. So yeah, I think I should be able to get these sleeves finished in the next couple of weeks. Well, actually, I have to do it in the next week because I need the cables to knit my daughter's sweater, her sleeves, in like a week or so. And you know what? I'm thinking, since her sleeve circumference is so much smaller, I might actually be able to use a different cable and just start on her sleeves. Although if I'm working on 4 sleeves simultaneously, how fast can that go, right? I really should just finish one and then do the other one. It isn't like you can knit them faster by doing all 4 at the same time. Anyway, I think it's because I was just thinking that because on her sweater I need the US 6 or 4 millimeter needles, and so those are available right now. I would just put those on the smaller cables. Okay, I'm not sure. Maybe I should just focus on this Jethro cardigan, finish the sleeves in the next week, and then focus on hers and do her sleeves in a week, and then we're done. I think that's what I should do. We'll see what I actually do. Last 2 works in progress are new ones. So I just finished my husband's socks number 7, and to keep the momentum going, I cast on pair number 8. Now pair number 8 is going to be a DK weight pair on US 3 or 3.25 millimeter needles because I felt like knitting more DK weight socks. These socks are going to be indestructible. The reason I say that is because I'm using 2 very hardy yarns, and I think it'll soften up when I wash it, but they are both, here, I'm gonna hold up the tags here. They're both Regia yarns, and this is a light fingering weight yarn, and it is 75% virgin wool, 25% nylon, and I think I don't actually have colorways. One of them is color number 6842, which, oh, you know what? I don't think it is that. This is the wrong tag. Unless the tag is always this color. I think this is the wrong tag, so this isn't even gonna give you the right color. Never mind. This one, okay, this one might also be the wrong tag, unless the color is just different on the front. Now I'm not really sure. Okay, anyway, forget about those tags. I'm just gonna show you the yarn. So I actually have started these socks over twice. Oh no, once. This is my second go at it. So the yarn I'm using, one of them is a self-patterning, and so it has blues and creams and oranges and browns and reds, and the other one is a heathered warm red. I thought these would go really well together, and the reason I had started over was initially I cast on fingering weight socks with this self-patterning yarn. I just thought it would look really nice. I've knit him socks with this yarn before in a different colorway, and they are very hardy, and the patterning looks really cool when it's done. But then I kind of lost steam. I wasn't even done with the cuffs, but I was like, I don't really feel like knitting these. So then I ripped them out, and instead I decided to hold it double with another yarn that I already had on hand. And here we are. Let me see if I can hold these up for you. Here is where we are at. I have 2 apple polymer clay charms on them that I made years ago with polymer clay that's super old. And if you've been here for some time, you will have heard me say this before. It's polymer clay I've had since probably the early mid 1990s. And it still works because polymer clay does not dry out. And yeah, the charms have been cured and they should last forever until they break. We'll see. But there's a green apple one, a red apple one. I think they're super cute and they go with the vibe. And I like how this yarn is knitting up held together. Of course, the self-patterning is going to be a little more muddled, just less pronounced, more subtle. But I think it'll look really nice. I think the red that I picked goes really well with it. I thought about using another color. I kind of wanted a dark brown, but I didn't have a dark brown. And so we went with this red, and I really like how it looks. With these socks, I don't really have any deadline. They are just to knit on whenever. They are something that I can knit on pretty easily when I'm reading, usually past the ribbing part, because I can't count and knit. I mean, I can't count and read at the same time. So with ribbing, it's pretty easy. Knit 2, purl 2, but I can't think on like 1, 2, 1, 2 while I'm reading. And so I have to finish the cuffs. And then once I get to the stockinette portion where I'm just knitting round and round, I can knit and read no problem. It is slightly trickier with yarns held double because I have to make sure I catch both yarns versus when I'm knitting with just one yarn, but it really isn't that bad. It works out just fine. The last work in progress I would like to share with you today are a pair of Halloween socks that I cast on for myself. Now, as I mentioned in the previous episode, I am a scaredy cat. I don't like anything remotely scary, and I love October for October, but not necessarily for like spooky Halloween stuff. But I will still cast on Halloween socks for myself, or October socks, or whatever. These socks I am knitting out of Knit Picks Hawthorne, which is classified as fingering weight, but I feel like it's closer to a light sport weight. It's 357 yards for 100 grams. This colorway is called Brooklyn. It is an 80% superwash fine Highland wool and 20% polyamide, which is like nylon. I find this yarn super hardy. It is not everybody's favorite. It's a high twist, so it's not as smooth, but I feel like it knits up really nicely. It washes really well. I've had no issues with it, and they have fun colorways. Here is what the yarn looks like caked up. Once again, I am knitting my socks 2 at a time on their own needles because that is the way I prefer to knit my socks. And then when I'm done because I'm knitting 2 cuffs and then maybe 10 rounds on one leg, 10 rounds on the other leg, 2 heels, and so on and so forth. So here is my yarn. It is like a dark charcoal gray with this hot pink. I'm going to show you a picture of what it looked like prior to caking it up. Because if you ever see yarn, sorry, I'm untwisting my socks here. If you ever see yarn in hanks that look similar to this, chances are you're going to get some cool pooling, micro striping going on when you knit up socks. Now, because the number of stitches you might have in a circumference and your gauge will vary, it won't necessarily always look the same, but it might give you an idea of what it might look like. So generally it's when you have a yarn that's mostly one color and then you have like a splotch of one color. I don't know the actual word for it, so I'm just saying splotch. And then when it pools, it either will have this like traveling stripe situation going on, or you'll end up with micro striping where like every other round is going to be the other color or a different color. And I have just finished my cuffs, so I'm not sure it's going to be as easy to notice because it's a knit 2 purl 2 rib, but I think you can kind of tell. I'm going to stretch it out a little, my hand, so hopefully it's more obvious. So you've got this like really cool charcoal band and then the hot pink band, and then it kind of keeps going back and forth. So it does spiral around a little, but for the most part, it looks like stripes and it looks really cool. I love it. So I did, I think 24 rounds of Knit 2 Purl 2 on top, and I'm using US 1.5, which are 2.5 millimeter needles, and I love how it's turning out. This is the knitting that I keep in my purse for whenever I have a minute somewhere, if I'm waiting in a doctor's office, waiting at the dentist's office, waiting for my kids. It is something I can pick up and put down whenever because I'm just knitting round and round, so I don't have to like finish a row or finish counting. I can literally just pick it up and start, or put it down and then do whatever I need to do. And so I love having these with me. I will keep it in my purse or my backpack and knit on it whenever I have a minute, like literally whenever I have a minute. So these are my Halloween socks. I'm knitting these as part of Denise's Falling Leaves sock knit along. I will put the hashtag here on the screen. The knit along goes until middle of November, and if you want extra details, go to Denise's website. Actually, I don't know if it's on her website. Go to Denise's YouTube channel and go to her Instagram, and you will find more details there. We are on to the Eats and Reads section. Now, I don't have pictures of the things I'm going to talk about recipe-wise. I will hopefully flash a picture of the book here on the screen. They are all Smitten Kitchen recipes that I have used before and come back to again and again. I'm trying to be better for myself to put a note on the page, like a Post-it note, to say when I tried it and what our family thought of it. And that way, I can remember if it is something that I want to come back to or things that I might change, because I'm always changing something. I rarely follow a recipe exactly. Same with my knitting. I rarely follow a pattern exactly. The three that I wanted to mention that I've made recently are the Swiss chard enchiladas. So good. We grow Swiss chard in the garden. It grows like a weed. It grows the entire summer. You keep chopping it down, it keeps growing. And so the Swiss chard enchiladas are so good. We have black beans in it. We have corn in it. And it heats up really nicely for lunch the next day. Don't have a picture of it, sorry. The next one are the Ooey Gooey bars or something like that. Also Smitten Kitchen recipe, so good. You can change out the kind of the toppings. It's got like a shortbread crust and then like this Ooey Gooey oat topping that I'll add chocolate chips and dried fruit to. I usually do dried cranberries because that's what we have, but you could do cherries to give it like a tart pucker, or you could do dried blueberries if you want something sweeter. Yeah, you can change it up as you go. And so that one's a hit here. My 9 by 13 inch casserole pan recently broke, and that's the one I use most often. So then I ended up baking the bars in the pan that's one size down, and they turned out just fine. I just increased the baking length of time by I think 5 or 10 minutes and checked on them, and everything turned out just fine. I was worried about using the one that was bigger because I didn't know if I had enough of the crust to really spread out in the bigger one. I didn't want it too thin, but I suppose then I could have just made the recipe 1.5 or 1.25. Anyway, turned out just fine. It was really delicious. Okay, on to books. So I recently finished reading Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. It is a book that was published in 1995. It is 286 pages. It is adult fiction fantasy, and we go through different stages of love and grief through different generations. I really like that love is depicted from like a tween or teenager point of view through an adult who has had some different life experiences in their 20s and 30s, and then onto another generation that is so old that you're not entirely sure how old they are. I don't remember if they mention how old the aunts are. I will say if there is certain content that you might be more sensitive to, definitely look up the trigger warnings for this book. I really enjoyed getting to know the characters, the family history, their sisterly bonds, and we go through the story of this family, the Owens family, through different generations. It's based in the United States, mostly in the Northeast area, and we're looking at New York and Massachusetts, and then a little bit from other parts of the country as well. I really enjoyed the read. I love a book that sucks me in and I get so invested in the characters and in their stories, and you really learn about their different personalities and their quirks. Characters are all very different, but not in the sense that they're these like 2D cutouts, but they are complicated characters that have a lot of relatable points, and you might know someone that's like that or parts of that character, or you might feel like you have something to relate to in that character situation. And I really enjoyed the storytelling, and I look forward to reading more books by Alice Hoffman. Currently, I have one of the other books in this series on hold at the library, so I'm waiting on that to come in, but I did get the one that was published in 2020. I'll flash a picture of that here on the screen. And when I was looking up more about this series, it sounded like you could either read the books as standalones in whatever order you want, or you could read them in chronological order by publishing date, or you could read them in chronological order by how the story is being told. And I'm just reading it in this order because of what book I have on hand from the library. So Practical Magic, the one that I was just talking about, is the first book in the series, but this next one, Magic Lessons, I believe, the one that's a gold cover, is the one most recently published, not necessarily the next one in the series, but I don't have the next one yet. So I'm going to start reading Magic Lessons and then hope that I get the other book in soon, and then I guess I'll swap them out or something. I don't know. We'll see. I think they all have some sort of waitlist hold on it because it is the season to be reading these books, and I think a lot of other people are interested in them as well. So I will just read them as they come in. I think that's what I'm going to do. Okay, on to food for thought. We have made it to the end. Are you still here? Thank you for joining me and spending some time with me in this creative space today. My food for thought today is something that I've always kind of thought about here and there. I don't know if it'll be something somebody says or something somebody does, and it kind of just reminds me of this thing. And what it is doing things for yourself. So like getting dressed for you, taking a shower for you. I think what triggers my thought on this is when people say, oh, I showered for you, or oh, I cleaned my room for you, or I tidied up for you. I generally like dress for me. So even if I'm not going anywhere or doing anything quote unquote special, that isn't going to prevent me from putting on like my favorite outfit or wearing my favorite sweater or putting on earrings, even if nobody else is going to see it. Because if it makes me feel good and makes me feel a certain way, then why not? I'm going to put it on. Or if I'm going to the dentist, or if I'm going to the car shop or something, I will just wear what I feel like wearing, not what I feel like I want somebody else to see me in. Hopefully I'm explaining this in a way that's conveying what I'm actually thinking and feeling. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, instead of getting dressed for someone else, think about getting dressed maybe for yourself. This is just a little exercise. Do whatever you want. This is never a place for me to tell you what to do or what not to do. I just have these ideas sometimes, and I just think I just think about throwing them out there, and maybe somebody else needed to hear these words today, or maybe somebody else has been feeling a certain feeling and this resonates with them. I'm just throwing it out there. But yeah, I feel like you don't necessarily need a special occasion to wear that special outfit. Just wear it if it makes you feel good, and yeah, why not? I think part of it comes from when we're making clothes for ourselves. We're making clothes that we want to feel good in, that we feel good about, and that make us feel a certain way. And so why do I have to only wear it in certain occasions? Like I'm not going to wear like a wool sweater in the middle of summer. That's not going to make me feel good. But yeah, anyway, I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over again with different words, or maybe even the same words. Maybe something I've said today resonates with you. If you have a nice shawl that you just want to throw on because it makes you feel good, wear it. It doesn't matter if nobody else is going to see you wearing it. And if someone compliments you on it when you wear it to the grocery store, wonderful, right? Like sometimes we'll say, oh, I made it, thank you. Or other times we'll just say, thank you, smile, and keep going. It's like your own little secret sometimes. I don't always like telling people that I made a certain something because sometimes it rolls into a conversation I'd rather not have, like people saying, oh, can you make me a sweater? Or, oh, do you sell your items? Or, I don't know, they're not like bad questions. It's just a conversation that I don't always feel like I have the energy to say, no, I don't want to make you a sweater, or no, I don't sell my items. I don't know, maybe some of you can relate with that as well, but that's my food for thought today. Maybe you have some thoughts on that as well. Feel free to drop some thoughts in the discussion conversation threads below this video. I do encourage people to be kind and considerate to one another. We are never here to tell anybody what to do. We don't know what anybody's situation is, and we're in charge of our own making. Don't tell anybody else what to do. And yeah, I think that's all I got for today. Cheers to being creative. I hope you're doing well, taking good care of yourselves, your loved ones, and your neighbors, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!